Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right, since I and others are going to be away next week in Israel, so let's just have a sneak preview of next week's Torah portion, the Parsha of Shmini, which continues from the last portion of this week's Torah portion of Tzav. This week's Torah portion concludes with preparing for the inauguration of the Tabernacle, the sanctuary in the desert. There are 7 days, 7 preparatory days, 7 inaugural days of the sanctuary, which Moses is the one who brings these inaugural offerings every single day. Every single day of these 7 days, it's the training period for Aaron and his children. They're going to be the Kohanes, but Moses is the one who is acting as the Kohen the first 7 days. In next week's Torah portion, which is called Shmini, which means 8, it begins with Moses calling upon Aaron and his sons and asking them to bring the first offerings. This becomes the first day of their service in the temple. He calls Aaron to come close to bring the offerings. At first, Aaron is hesitant because, after all, he feels guilty about taking part in the golden calf, so he feels inadequate. And Moses encourages him to come and bring Aaron, that he should come to the altar. And this inauguration, by the way, takes place, first of all, it takes place in the presence of the entire Jewish people. If you take a look at page 640, verse number 5, they took what Moses had commanded to the front of the tent of the meeting, and the entire community approached and stood before God. Why was this in the presence of the entire community? So, the obvious reason is, this is the final part of the inauguration. This is so exciting. Who's not going to be there? Everyone's going to be there.
Oh, come on.
Hey, take it easy.
Hey, don't worry, it's okay.
But isn't it also that they wanted to show that it's God who inaugurated Aaron and his sons as the priests?
So,
that
is correct. Moses gathers the entire Jewish people to make a point. It wasn't that they gathered because it was so exciting. Of course they gathered because it was very special. But he made a point to gather the entire Jewish people. Since this is the appointment of Aaron and his sons, which is his brother, you're going to have those who are saying, we know he appointed his brother, nepotism. Yeah. Moses is leader. He appointed his brother. Yeah, we know how this works. This was God's instruction. And therefore, he did it publicly. It was a public statement. So, if he would have done it in a private session, there could be those who will say, the naysayers, we know why he did it privately, so no one should protest. This was done in the most public setting. Anyone has anything to say? Say it. This was not me. This was God's instruction. Anyway, it's a very dramatic opening, the portion of Shmini. There's a lot of details involved over here. Aaron blesses the Jewish people. page 642, bottom of the page, verse 22, he lifts up his hands, he blesses the people. And then the final verse of chapter 9, they all saw the glory of God. They saw fire coming from before God, which consumed the offerings, the burnt offerings on the altar. All the people saw this. They sang praises and they fell upon their faces. Very, very dramatic. The next chapter begins with an occurrence that takes place on that very same day, and it's very tragic. Two of Aaron's sons, his older sons, Nadav and Avihu, they bring an incense offering inside the tabernacle, an incense offering that they were not instructed. They weren't commanded to bring this. They brought this in. Basically, they went into the Holy of Holies. And there are many reasons behind all of this, but I'll just get to the point. Going into the Holy of Holies is a place that only the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, is able to enter only one day of the year on Yom Kippur. Only he's able to to enter, and he's only able to enter on the holiest day of the year. But they were so inspired, they were so impassioned by what they experienced, that they wanted to enter and bring an offering, an incense offering into the Holy of Holies. They had some l'chaim, and they were just all fired up themselves. We want to go in. Now, mind you, the reason why there are many restrictions around going into the Holy of Holies, or for that matter, restrictions in the Torah, these are things which are for our benefit. When they go into the Holy of Holies, they realize this is not Yom Kippur. We were not instructed to bring this. We didn't ask Moses, is this okay? They felt so impassioned that they went in. Whatever it may be, we're going in. The Torah continues, Vateitze eish l'fnei Hashem. A fire came out from before God and consumed them, and they died before God. The very next verse. Sorry. Yeah?
I don't know if you alluded, but weren't they drunk?
1 second. They were not drunk. They had some l'chaim, but they weren't drunk. It doesn't say drunk. It said shesuya yayin, which means they drank. It doesn't say shikurim hoyu. The next verse says, Moses said to Aaron, when God said, I will be sanctified through those whom I have chosen, and I will be glorified before all the people, this is what he was talking about. Aaron was silent. The next portion, then he tells Mishal and Eltzaphan, his cousins, to go and take them from outside the tent, take them out of the tent. And the very next portion is where God gives a command to Aaron that one should not enter into the tabernacle while under the influence. Now, let's see what's going on over here, because here's the important lesson. There are many behind the scene reasons of why they entered. Either they had some l'chaim and they were very uplifted and inspired, and they were impassioned. Basically, they were impassioned to go in. That was their driving force. They didn't ask Moses whether it's right to do or not. They said, this is what we want to do. This is what we feel we need to do. They were impassioned. Let's go in. According to the sages, Yerachayim, he explains that they realized as well that by going in without the proper precautions, it may mean that they will lose their life. But it didn't make a difference to them. They went in. Now let's understand what's going on here. First of all, they were not punished for going in. And the proof that they were not punished, because the very same expression that is described in at the end of the previous chapter, referring to a divine revelation, which is the same 4 words, Vateitze eish milifnei Hashem, and a fire came out from before God, which is a description of a revelation. That very same description, same 4 words, appear here. Vateitze eish milifnei Hashem. If it would have been a punishment, there would have been a different phraseology. Hashem burnt them. A fire came out before Elohim, which is the name of God of judgment. So this, and they died before Hashem. Same terminology. It means that there was a very intense divine revelation. Now, when a person experiences something very intense, they have to take precautions. If the sound is very intense, what do? You put in earplugs. You put something. No, if the sound is very intense, nothing you can do about the sound. You have to take precautions on yourself. Put in earplugs. Put in something over your ears. Do something that will have precaution. You're dealing with chemicals, which are caustic chemicals. You take precautions. You put on gloves. You put on other gear to make sure, because you're dealing with chemicals which are very caustic. You're dealing with something which is very intense. You take precautions. The reason why the Torah tells us that only the Kohen Gadol can enter into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, on the holiest day, is because it's a very holy place. It's a very intense place of holiness. You need to take precautions. In just a week, there's going to be a what do you call it? On April 8th, a solar eclipse. There's going to be a solar eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
So watching a solar eclipse is very intense. Everyone wants to watch a solar eclipse, but if you watch a solar eclipse without the proper gear,
You can get damaged.
your eyes can get damaged. A person can go blind. Whoa, what did I do wrong? Why is this? Why am I being punished? Not being punished. You're experiencing something very intense. You need to have the proper gear. In order to go into the Holy of Holies, be prepared to experience something very intense.
Didn't they know
But
this?
they did know it.
No.
Now, what happens when a person says a l'chaim? What happens when a person says l'chaim? What is the problem when a person says too much l'chaim?
Well, we know
Then what happens is exactly, it impairs their judgment. They think they can do anything. They think they can be Superman.
I can try, yeah.
I can do it. There's no problem. I'm not impaired. So going into the Holy of Holies, we have to take precautions. There's no l'chaims. You go in, it has to be only the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur. You bring this kind of an offering, which was a very intense offering, the offering that they brought. You have to ask permission. Ask Moses. They didn't ask. They had l'chaim. They came, they went in. Why? Because they felt the passion. Que sera sera, as they say in Yiddish.
said that in Yiddish. My Bobby never said that.
That's it. Was wird sein, wird sein. We're going in. We're going in. So if so, what was wrong? Why does the Torah tell us this? Maybe it wasn't wrong. Maybe it was as in other religions. They refer to this as an experience where a person's soul leaves their body. They have that's something which is very holy. Where their whole body, where their soul leaves their body as a result of passion for God.
That was my experience.
That's, according to Judaism, that's wrong. Why is that wrong? Because, again, we go back to the same point. We cannot think about what we need. We have to think about what we're needed for. Judaism is not about escaping reality. Rapture in Judaism is not the highest ideal. It isn't. We engage in something inspiring, something impassionate in Judaism in order to recharge ourselves. But it's not about escaping. It's about recharging our batteries in order to go out of that experience and coming back into the physical, into the mundane, with greater inspiration. The objective is bringing heaven down to earth, not escaping reality, not going to heaven. That is the message. And so yes, were they holy? They were very holy people. But our objective is not to be holy to the extent that we escape reality. They were very holy people, and through them we learned a lesson. Our lesson is that when we engage in something holy, it's in order to bring that inspiration and bring that holiness into everyday life. So every morning we daven, we put on tefillin. The objective is not to remain in prayer all day. The objective is, now you've connected, now go out into the world. When we have Shabbat, one day of intense holiness, one day of week. The idea of Shabbat is not an escape from reality. The idea of Shabbat is that we have one day of holiness of the week, and that one day of holiness inspires us for the rest of the week. Which, by the way, this week we lost a great giant among the Jewish people. United States former Senator Joe Lieberman, who passed away on Wednesday. Suddenly, very, very special person. He wrote a book about the gift of rest, about Shabbat. I encourage everyone to read that book. Very, very special. He was a real living example of how you could rise to the highest echelons. He was a candidate for vice presidency, a Jew and an observant Jew. Kept Shabbat. He kept Shabbat. If he ever had to take a vote in the capital, he would walk on Shabbat. Very special. And when he was asked, how could you be Shabbat observant, to be a candidate for vice presidency, to be a diplomat? He said, how can I not? It's because of Shabbat that gives me, it's my anchor in life. So Shabbat is not an escape from reality. Shabbat inspires us in order to go back into the world with greater vision, with greater purpose. The same is also about Yom Kippur. We don't escape reality by going into Yom Kippur. We go into Yom Kippur, an intense day, in order to bring that into everyday reality. And the same is also true as some of us are going to Israel. We're going to the Holy Land. The idea of going to the Holy Land is not an escape from reality. To go to a Holy Land. The land of Israel is not a land. Yes, it does dwell alone. It's a nation that dwells alone. But not a nation that dwells alone in order to escape reality. Yes, we are alone. It's an island. Just like Shabbat is an island in time. Israel is an island of sorts. And if it doesn't realize that, the world will make sure it realizes that. Even this week, the United States abstained from in the United Nations about Israel. Yes, Israel is a nation that dwells alone. But from Israel comes guidance and comes inspiration and comes a living example for the rest of the world. We go to Israel to connect with the land, to connect with our people, to come back with greater inspiration, with greater vigor, with greater strength. So with that, let's enter Shabbat.
Okay, very good.
Wish you all Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
And God willing, see you on the, hopefully we'll have some messages, social media messages while we're in Israel, but we'll see you on the regular Zoom after April 8th.
Very good. And 6 o'clock
So
time.
it'll be, we're going to resume. I'm not sure. I doubt it's going to be on. We can try on April 8th. I doubt it's going to happen on April 8th. We'll try. If it doesn't happen on April 8th, it'll happen on April 9th. We'll give it a shot. We'll give it a
6
shot.
o'clock.
Wishing you an uplifting journey.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Nasiya Tova.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Very good.
Good comments.